The conference chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive structure built by the first makers long before any current species had discovered fire. Its walls were made of something that looked like crystal but was harder than any known metal. Through those walls, 1,000 different suns cast their light, creating a rainbow that moved slowly across the floor as the chamber drifted through space. Ambassador Kelth of the Zorvan Empire stood at the central podium, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence as he addressed the assembled representatives. His scales, which normally shimmered with calm blue patterns, flickered with anxious orange streaks. Around him, beings from 200 different worlds waited in silence. Some had faces, some did not. Some breathed oxygen, others floated in tanks of methane or pure energy fields. But all of them understood the gravity of this moment. "The star's law has governed our existence for 4 million years," Kelth said. His voice translated into 200 languages by the ancient systems of the chamber. Not one species, not one civilization has ever violated it. Those who tried ceased to exist. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Everyone knew the stories. The Krell Dominion 3 million years ago had attempted to exceed the law's limits on faster-than-light travel. Their entire species had vanished in a single moment, along with 47 star systems. The Mathera Collective had tried to harvest energy beyond the permitted threshold. Reality itself had unraveled around them, creating a dead zone that still existed, a scar in space where nothing could survive. The star's law was simple in its statement, but absolute in its enforcement. No species could travel faster than 100 times the speed of light. No civilization could draw more than 0.001% of a star's energy. No territory could expand beyond 10,000 light-years from its homeworld. These were not rules written by any government or council. They were fundamental truths of the universe, as unchangeable as gravity or time. At least, that was what everyone had believed for millions of years. 3 cycles ago, Kelth continued, his voice dropping lower, our monitoring stations detected something impossible. The Veil Imperium achieved faster-than-light travel at 150 times light speed. The chamber erupted. Delegates rose from their seats, appendages waving, voices rising in multiple octaves and frequencies. The translation system struggled to keep up with the chaos. "Impossible. They will destroy us all. The cascade will begin." Kelth raised all 4 of his arms, calling for silence. "There is worse news. The Veil have not suffered any consequences. No reality collapse. No dimensional fracture. They have done this 17 times now, and they continue to exist." In a corner of the chamber, away from the central clusters of ancient and powerful species, a small delegation sat quietly. The humans had been part of the Galactic Concord for only 73 years, barely a heartbeat in galactic time. Their territory consisted of 5 star systems, making them one of the smallest members of the assembly. Most of the older species barely acknowledged their existence. Captain Sarah Chen, the human representative, watched the chaos with calm, dark eyes. She was a small woman by human standards, with short black hair starting to show gray at the temples. Next to her sat Dr. James Morrison, a thin man with copper skin and quick fingers that were constantly taking notes on a data pad. Behind them stood Lieutenant Marcus Webb, their security officer, a tall man whose main job was to look impressive and keep quiet. "They are panicking," Morrison whispered to Chen, leaning close so only she could hear. "Can you blame them?" Chen replied, her eyes never leaving the podium. "If what we learned about galactic history is true, this should be impossible. The star's law doesn't just punish violators, it erases them from existence. But the Veil are still here." "Exactly." The chamber slowly returned to order. Kelth continued his briefing, and holographic displays materialized in the air above the assembly. They showed star charts, energy readings, and footage from long-range observation drones. The Veil Imperium's ships were clearly visible, moving at speeds that should have torn them apart at the molecular level. The Veil themselves were an old species, though not among the eldest. They had controlled their region of space for 300,000 years, slowly expanding through conquest and intimidation. They had always pushed against boundaries, always tested limits. Now it seemed they had found a way to break the ultimate boundary. "The Veil have issued a demand," Kelth said, his scales now pure black with fear. "They require all species to acknowledge their supremacy. Those who refuse will face their new weapons, powered by energy extraction levels far beyond the permitted limits. They claim they have broken the star's law completely. They say the old rules no longer apply. An elderly delegate from the Threen Collective, a species that had existed for over 2 million years, rose slowly from her seat. Her body was mostly machine now, her organic parts preserved in a containment field. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of ages. "If the Veil have truly broken the star's law," she said slowly, "then we face not just conquest, but the potential end of all existence. The law exists because reality itself enforces it. If the Veil have found a way to circumvent reality's own rules, the consequences will eventually manifest. Perhaps not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but the cascade will come. It always does. Then what do we do?" asked a delegate whose species had no name that could be pronounced by beings with mouths. "Do we surrender to prevent the cascade, or do we fight and risk triggering it ourselves?" The debate raged for hours. Some argued for immediate surrender. Others wanted to launch a massive coordinated attack, hoping to destroy the Veil before they could do more damage. The more philosophical delegates suggested that perhaps the star's law was not as absolute as they had believed, that maybe the universe itself was changing. Through it all, the human delegation sat quietly, listening and observing. Finally, as the debate seemed to be reaching a deadlock, Ambassador Kelth noticed the humans. He had almost forgotten they were there. "The humans," he said, not unkindly but with a tone that suggested he was simply being thorough. "You are new to our assembly. Perhaps you have some perspective to offer?" Every eye, sensor, and perception organ in the chamber turned toward the small human delegation. Captain Chen stood slowly, feeling the weight of 200 civilizations' attention upon her. She walked to the podium, her steps echoing in the sudden silence. When she spoke, her voice was steady and calm. "We have been listening carefully," Chen said, "and we have been studying your data. We have also reviewed the historical records of previous attempts to violate the star's law." "And?" Kelth prompted, his scales showing patterns of polite interest mixed with barely concealed condescension. "We believe," Chen said carefully, "that the star's law is not being broken." The chamber erupted again, this time with sounds that the translation systems rendered as laughter and disbelief. "Foolish newcomers," someone muttered. "They understand nothing," said another. But Chen continued, raising her voice slightly. "The law is not being broken. It is being misunderstood. There is a pattern here that we need to examine more carefully." Kelth's scales flickered with what might have been amusement or pity. "Captain Chen, we have studied these laws for millions of years. Surely you do not presume to understand them better than species that were ancient when your world was still cooling." Chen met his gaze steadily. "With respect, Ambassador, sometimes being new means you see things that others have stopped looking for. The Veil are not breaking the star's law. They are exploiting something within it, and if we do not understand what that is, then we cannot stop them." "Do you have proof of this theory?" asked the Threen Elder, her mechanical voice curious despite its flatness. "Not yet," Chen admitted, "but we would like permission to investigate. We believe that humanity's different perspective might be valuable here." The chamber filled with murmurs again, but this time they were more thoughtful than mocking. Several delegates exchanged glances, their equivalent of private conversations. Kelth considered for a long moment, his scales cycling through several colors before settling on a neutral green. "Very well. The humans may investigate, though I suspect you will find that some walls cannot be seen from a different angle, because they surround us completely." Chen nodded and returned to her seat. As she sat down, Morrison leaned over and whispered, "That was quite a claim. I hope you have some idea of how to back it up." Chen smiled slightly, her eyes still on the holographic displays showing the Veil ships. "Actually, I think I might. But we are going to need to look at this problem the way humans look at problems, not the way the galaxy has been looking at it for 4 million years. "And how is that?" "Like it is a puzzle to be solved," Chen said, "not a wall to be feared." The assembly continued to debate strategies and contingencies, but the humans sat quietly, already beginning to form their own plans. They had 7 cycles before the Veil Imperium would arrive to enforce their demands. 7 cycles to understand what no species had understood in 4 million years. 7 cycles to find the loophole in reality itself. The observation deck of the human research vessel Curiosity offered a view that never failed to humble those who saw it. Stars stretched in every direction, ancient lights that had traveled for centuries to reach this point in space. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the main viewport, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the distant glow of the Veil Imperium's territory. "They are moving faster than predicted," Dr. Morrison said, looking up from his console. His face was illuminated by the blue glow of data streams flowing across his screens. "The Veil fleet will reach the neutral zone in 4 cycles now, not 7. Chen nodded slowly. "They are confident. They want to demonstrate their power before anyone can organize an effective response." Behind them, the rest of the human research team worked in focused silence. They had been given access to the Galactic Concord's complete historical database, something that would have taken decades to achieve under normal circumstances. Desperate times created unusual opportunities. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Webb from the communication station, "we are receiving a priority broadcast. It is going out to all Concord members. Put it through." The viewport shifted, replacing the star field with an image that made several crew members gasp. A Veil commander stood in what appeared to be a throne room of dark metal and crimson light. The Veil were tall beings, nearly 3 meters in height, with bodies covered in interlocking plates of natural armor. Their faces were angular and sharp, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. When the commander spoke, his voice was deep and resonant, filled with absolute certainty. "People of the galaxy," the Veil commander began, his 4 eyes gleaming with triumph. "I am Supreme Commander Vartok of the Veil Imperium. You have lived in fear of the Star's law for millions of years. You have accepted limits because you were told they could not be broken. You were wrong." The image shifted to show a massive Veil warship, larger than anything humanity had ever built. Energy readings scrolled across the screen showing power outputs that should have been impossible. "Behold the Dark Star Ascendant," Vartok continued. "She travels at 160 times the speed of light. She draws energy from her star at levels 10,000 times beyond your so-called limits. And yet reality does not collapse. The universe does not end. The star's law was a lie told by the weak to keep themselves safe from the strong." Vartok stepped forward, his armored body filling the screen. "In 4 cycles, our fleet will arrive at the coordinates of the Galactic Concord Assembly Station. At that time, every species will acknowledge the supremacy of the Veil Imperium, or you will face consequences beyond your imagination. We have broken the chains that bound all life in this galaxy. Now all will serve the Veil or all will perish." The transmission ended, returning the viewport to its normal display of stars. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Morrison spoke quietly. "He believes every word he is saying. He truly thinks they have conquered the fundamental laws of the universe." "That makes them even more dangerous," Chen replied. She turned away from the viewport and walked to Morrison's station. "Show me what you have found in the historical records." Morrison brought up a series of displays, each showing data from ancient civilizations that had tried to exceed the star's law. Every previous attempt followed the same pattern. First, there was success. The violation worked, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. The species involved celebrated their triumph. Then came the cascade. "Describe it," Chen said, leaning closer to examine the data. "Reality collapsed, but not the way we usually think of it. It started small, with minor inconsistencies. Ships would arrive at their destinations and find their crews had aged differently than expected. Energy systems would produce output that did not match input. Time and space began to disagree with each other." Morrison pulled up another file, this one showing visual records from the final days of the Krell Dominion. The images were corrupted and fragmented, but they showed enough. Ships twisted into impossible shapes, stars flickering in and out of existence. Beings caught between moments, their bodies stretched across time like photographs with too long an exposure. Then the cascade accelerated, Morrison continued. Within days, sometimes hours, entire star systems simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed in the normal sense. They just were no longer part of reality. As if they had never existed at all. "Except the records remain," Chen observed. "Yes, that is the strange part. The universe remembers what was lost, even as it erases the loss. Every species knows the stories, knows the names of those who violated the law, but the violators themselves are gone so completely that even their homeworlds cannot be found." Chen studied the data in silence, her mind working through the implications. "How long did it take? From first violation to complete erasure?" Morrison checked his notes. The longest recorded survival was the Mathara Collective. They lasted 17 days after their first violation. The shortest was the Tellus Compact, who ceased to exist within 4 hours. The Veil have been violating the law for 3 cycles now, Chen said thoughtfully. That is already longer than most historical examples. Why? That is the question every species is asking. Some think the Veil found a way to stabilize the violation. Others believe the cascade simply has not started yet. The Three Elders think that reality itself is changing, becoming more flexible. Chen shook her head. No, there is something different about what the Veil are doing. Something that does not match the historical pattern. She turned to face her crew. We need to see their technology up close. We need to understand exactly what they are doing and how they are doing it. That would require getting close to their ships, Webb pointed out. Very close. The kind of close that tends to result in becoming a target. Yes, Chen agreed, which is why we need to be smart about it. She walked back to the command chair and activated the ship-wide communications. This is the captain. All senior staff, report to the briefing room in 10 minutes. We are going to do something that will probably seem insane to the rest of the galaxy. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Just probably. Chen smiled slightly. We are going to approach the Veil fleet and ask them to show us their technology. The briefing room fell silent when Chen announced her plan. Around the table, her senior officers stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to concern, to what might have been admiration for sheer audacity. You want to contact the species that just threatened to destroy the entire galaxy, Chief Engineer Rodriguez said slowly, and ask them for a tour of their impossible warship? Yes, Chen replied simply. They will destroy us, Webb said flatly. Maybe, but I do not think so. Chen activated the room's holographic display showing the data Morrison had compiled. Look at the pattern. The Veil are not just breaking the star's law. They are broadcasting it. They want everyone to know what they have done. They are proud of it. Pride is not the same as stupidity, Rodriguez countered. They will not reveal their secrets to potential enemies. We are not potential enemies, Chen said. We are humans. We control 5-star systems and have been part of the Conquered for less than a century. To the Veil we are insects, irrelevant, beneath notice. Morrison began to nod slowly. You want to use our weakness as an advantage. Exactly. The Veil want to demonstrate their superiority. What better way than to show primitive humans exactly how far beyond us they have evolved? They will not see it as a security risk. They will see it as an opportunity to humiliate us, to show us how hopeless resistance would be. It is still incredibly dangerous, Webb insisted. Yes, Chen agreed. But consider the alternative. The Conquered is preparing for war. Ancient species are mobilizing fleets that have not moved in millennia. They are going to attack the Veil with everything they have, and it will fail. You sound very certain of that, Rodriguez said. I am, because the Conquered is fighting based on fear and incomplete information. They see the Veil as an impossibility that must be destroyed before it destroys them. But what if the Veil are not an impossibility? What if they are simply doing something that the galaxy has not understood? Chen pointed to the historical data. Every species that violated the star's law did so by brute force. They tried to overpower the universe's limits through sheer energy or technology, and every single one was erased. But the Veil have lasted longer. They must be doing something different. And you think you can figure out what that is by talking to them? Rodriguez asked skeptically. Not by talking. By observing. By seeing their technology with human eyes, not through the lens of 4 million years of fear and tradition. Chen looked at each of her officers in turn. Humanity has always succeeded by looking at problems differently. We did not accept that heavier-than-air flight was impossible. We did not accept that we were bound to our planet. We did not accept that the speed of light was an absolute barrier. We found ways around every impossible problem we faced. The star's law is different, Webb said quietly. It is not just physics. It is reality itself saying no. Maybe, Chen replied. Or maybe it is reality saying not that way. Maybe the Veil found a different path and maybe we can find another one entirely. She stood, placing her hands on the table. I am not ordering anyone to come with me. This is volunteer only, but I'm going to make contact with the Veil. I'm going to get close enough to understand what they are really doing. And then, I am going to find a way to stop them that does not involve repeating 4 million years of the same failed strategies. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Morrison stood. I am with you, Captain. This is exactly the kind of problem humanity exists to solve. Rodriguez sighed and stood as well. Someone needs to keep the ship running while you two are being brilliant or getting us killed. Probably both. Webb was the last to stand. Security detail does not let the captain run toward danger alone. Even when the danger is reality-warping impossible warships commanded by megalomaniacal aliens. Chen felt a smile cross her face. Then let us go show the galaxy how humans deal with impossible problems. We will send our message to the Veil within the hour. As her crew filed out to prepare, Chen remained for a moment, looking at the display showing the advancing Veil fleet. Somewhere out there, Supreme Commander Vartok believed he had conquered the universe itself. He was about to learn that the universe had a sense of humor. It had just sent him humans. The response from the Veil came faster than expected. Supreme Commander Vartok appeared on the communication screen of the Curiosity, his four eyes studying the humans with what might have been amusement. So, Vartok said, his voice carrying a tone of condescension that needed no translation, the primitive species wishes to witness true power. How entertaining. Captain Chen stood straight, keeping her expression neutral. Supreme Commander, humanity seeks knowledge above all else. We have heard of your achievements, and we wish to understand them. We are not warriors like the ancient species. We are explorers and scientists. You are insects, Vartok corrected, but there was no real anger in his voice. But insects can serve a purpose very well. You may approach the Dark Star Ascendant. You will see what the Veil have accomplished, and you will understand why resistance is futile. Perhaps your species will be wise enough to surrender immediately when we arrive at the conquered assembly. We are grateful for this opportunity, Chen said, bowing slightly. It felt wrong to show deference to someone threatening the galaxy, but pride would not help them now. You will follow the coordinates I transmit, Vartok continued. Deviate from the prescribed course and you will be destroyed. Attempt any hostile action and you will be destroyed. Make any sudden movements and you will be destroyed. Do you understand? Perfectly, Supreme Commander. Good. I look forward to seeing the hope die in your primitive eyes when you witness what we have become. The transmission ended abruptly. Morrison let out a breath he had been holding. Well, that was terrifying. But it worked, Chen said, returning to her command chair. Webb, set course for those coordinates. Engineering, I want every sensor we have focused on that ship. I want to know everything about it. The journey took 6 hours. As the Curiosity approached the designated coordinates, the Veil fleet came into view. It was a sight that would have impressed any military commander in the galaxy. Dozens of warships arranged in perfect formation, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets. But it was the flagship that drew every eye. The Dark Star Ascendant was massive, easily 10 times the size of the largest human vessel. Its hull was made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Energy readings poured across every console on the human ship, showing power levels that should not exist. Mother of God, Rodriguez whispered from the engineering station. The energy signature alone should be tearing that ship apart. How is it even holding together? That is what we are here to find out, Chen replied. A smaller Veil vessel approached the Curiosity and transmitted docking instructions. Within minutes, the human ship was secured in one of the flagship's enormous docking bays. As Chen and her team prepared to board, Morrison pulled her aside. Captain, look at this. He showed her his data pad, which displayed complex energy readings. The power flow in this ship, it is not constant. It pulses like a heartbeat. What does that mean? I am not sure yet, but it is not how any normal power system works. It is almost like the ship is breathing. Chen filed that information away as they stepped into the airlock. The inner door opened, revealing a Veil honor guard. 6 warriors in full armor, each carrying weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. They were escorted through corridors that seemed designed to intimidate, with high ceilings and walls covered in sharp angles and harsh lighting. Finally, they entered a massive chamber that served as both throne room and command center. Supreme Commander Vartok sat on a raised platform, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and tactical data. He rose as the humans entered, and Chen was reminded of just how physically imposing the Veil were. Welcome to the future of galactic civilization, Vartok announced, spreading his arms wide. You stand aboard the first vessel to transcend the pathetic limits that have bound all life for millions of years. It is impressive, Chen admitted truthfully. We have never seen anything like it. Of course you have not. No one has. Vartok descended from his platform, moving closer to the human delegation. The ancient species cower in fear because they cannot comprehend what we have achieved. They think we have broken reality itself. They are fools. Chen's attention sharpened. You have not broken the star's law? Vartok laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The star's law? That is what the weak call it, as if the universe itself had written commandments to keep everyone in their place. No, Captain. We have not broken anything. We have simply seen past the illusion. I do not understand, Chen said, which was true enough. Then let me educate you. Vartok gestured, and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed complex mathematical formulas and energy patterns. The so-called star's law is not a law at all. It is a warning. A boundary marker placed by the universe to say, beyond this point you must be careful. Morrison stepped forward, studying the display with hungry eyes. You found a way to stabilize the cascade effect. Stabilize? No, young human. We found a way to surf it. Vartok manipulated the display, showing energy waves flowing through space. When lesser species violated the limits, they did so with brute force. They tried to push through the boundary. The universe pushed back harder and harder until reality itself rejected them. But you did something different, Chen said. We learned to dance with the forces instead of fighting them. Every action has a reaction. When you exceed the speed limit, reality pushes back. But if you push and pull at the same time, if you create a rhythm, a balance, then you can go as fast as you want. The universe does not erase you because, technically, you are not violating anything. You are working within the boundaries, just in a way no one else understood. Chen felt her mind racing. This was it. This was the key. You are using the reactive forces as propulsion, in a manner of speaking. Every time reality tries to correct our violation, we channel that corrective force into our engines, our weapons, our shields. We are not breaking the law. We are making the law work for us. Morrison was frantically taking notes, his fingers flying across his datapad. Chen could see the pieces coming together in his mind, the same way they were in hers. It is brilliant, Chen said, and she meant it, using the universe's own defense mechanisms as a power source. Vartok seemed pleased by her understanding. Finally, someone who can appreciate the elegance of our solution. The ancient species are too rigid in their thinking. They have obeyed the star's law for so long that they cannot imagine working with it instead of against it. But there must be limits, Chen said carefully. Even your method must have boundaries. Minor ones, Vartok dismissed with a wave. We must maintain the rhythm, the balance. Too much push without enough pull or vice versa, and the system destabilizes. But we have mastered this dance. We can go faster, draw more power, expand further than anyone in history. And the other species cannot stop you. Correct. Their weapons work within the old limits. Ours do not. They cannot touch us. In 3 cycles, we will arrive at the conquered assembly. If they choose to fight, we will destroy their fleets without effort. If they choose to surrender, they will become part of the new order we are creating. Chen nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. You have certainly given us much to consider, Supreme Commander. Consider quickly, Captain. When we arrive at the assembly, I will expect humanity's answer. Will you serve the Veil willingly, or will you be crushed along with the others who cling to the old ways? We will give you our answer, Chen promised. The tour continued for another hour. Vartok showed them the engine core, where massive machines created the precise rhythms needed to balance violation and correction. He showed them the weapon systems which could channel reality's corrective forces into devastating beams of energy. He showed them everything, secure in his belief that understanding would only deepen their despair. When the human delegation finally returned to the Curiosity, they maintained professional composure until their ship had cleared the Veil fleet. Then, as soon as they were at a safe distance, Morrison turned to Chen with wide eyes. Did you see it? He asked urgently. Yes, Chen replied, a slight smile crossing her face. I saw it. The rhythm is unstable, Morrison continued, pulling up his notes. It looks balanced, but it is not. There are micro-fluctuations in the pattern. They are small now, but they are growing. The Veil have not mastered the dance, Chen said. They have simply learned a few steps. But they do not understand the full choreography. Rodriguez joined them from the engineering station. Captain, I analyzed the power flow patterns. They are not just unstable. They are accelerating. The more the Veil use their technology, the faster the instability grows. How long? Chen asked. Hard to say exactly, but if they maintain their current usage levels, especially if they engage in combat, I would estimate less than 2 cycles before the system collapses. And when it does? Webb asked quietly. The cascade will be worse than anything in the historical records, Morrison said grimly, because the Veil have not just violated the star's law. They have weaponized the violation. When it fails, it will not just erase them. It will erase everything within 1,000 light years. Chen sat in her command chair, processing this information. They think they have conquered the universe. But they have actually created a bomb that is about to explode. So we just wait for them to destroy themselves? Rodriguez asked. No, Chen said firmly. Because when they go, they will take the Concord assembly with them along with billions of innocent lives. We need to stop them. Ow! Webb asked. We cannot fight them. Chen's smile widened slightly. We do not need to fight them. We need to outdance them. She turned to Morrison. Can you create a counter rhythm? Something that would disrupt their balance without triggering an immediate cascade. Morrison's eyes lit up with understanding. If we can introduce a harmonic interference, it would force their systems to compensate. They would have to slow down, reduce their power usage, or risk losing control. But they will not slow down, Chen said. Bartok is too proud. He will try to push through the interference, which will accelerate the collapse, Rodriguez realized, but in a controlled way, one that we can contain. Exactly. Chen stood, her mind already working through the possibilities. Morrison, I need you to design the counter rhythm. Rodriguez, figure out how to broadcast it. Webb, contact the Concord. Tell them we have a plan, but they need to trust us and follow our instructions exactly. They are not going to like this, Webb warned. Probably not, Chen agreed. But they do not have to like it. They just have to do it. Because in 2 cycles, the Veil are going to arrive at the assembly. And when they do, we are going to show them that humans know how to dance too. The Galactic Concord assembly chamber buzzed with tension as Captain Chen stood before the gathered representatives. Above her, holographic projections showed the approaching Veil fleet now less than 1 cycle away. The assembled species had mobilized their ancient war fleets, thousands of ships representing millions of years of military tradition. But Chen could see the fear in every eye, sensor, and perception organ. You want us to stand down? Ambassador Kelth's scales flickered with agitation, cycling through colors that spoke of disbelief and anger. The Veil approach with weapons that defy reality itself, and you ask us to do nothing? Not nothing, Chen corrected calmly. I am asking you to trust us, to follow the plan exactly as we have outlined. A human plan, said the Threen Elder, her mechanical voice carrying skepticism. Your species has been part of this Concord for less than a century. The Veil have existed for 300,000 years. Why should we believe you understand them better than we do? Chen had expected this resistance. She gestured to Morrison, who activated a detailed holographic display. It showed the energy patterns they had observed aboard the Dark Star Ascendant, with clear annotations highlighting the growing instabilities. Because we looked at the problem differently, Chen explained. You see the Veil as an impossible threat. We see them as engineers who built something brilliant but fundamentally flawed. They have not broken the star's law, they have found a loophole, but that loophole is killing them. They just do not know it yet. Morrison stepped forward, manipulating the display to show cascading failure projections. The Veil technology works by creating a rhythmic balance between violating the star's law and using reality's corrective forces as propulsion. But the rhythm is deteriorating. Every time they use their systems, the pattern becomes more unstable. Then they will destroy themselves, said a delegate from the Karvesh Union. Why should we intervene? Because when they collapse, they will not just destroy themselves, Chen said grimly. The amount of energy they have been channeling will be released all at once. The cascade will consume everything within 1,000 light years. That includes this assembly station and the 53 inhabited star systems nearby. The chamber erupted in alarmed voices. Species that had been preparing for war now faced a different kind of threat entirely. We must flee, someone shouted. There is not enough time to evacuate, another responded. We could destroy them before they arrive, suggested a military commander, whose species Chen did not recognize. No, Chen said firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. Attacking them will only accelerate the collapse. You would trigger the very catastrophe we are trying to prevent. Then what do you propose? Kelth demanded. Chen took a breath. This was the moment that mattered. We propose a controlled collapse. We introduce a harmonic interference into the Veil systems, something that will disrupt their balance. They will try to compensate, to push harder, which will speed up the failure. But we can guide that failure, contain it, make it happen in a way that neutralizes their threat without destroying everything around them. You want to manipulate reality's own corrective forces? The Threen Elder asked, and for the first time, Chen heard something like respect in her voice. That is an extraordinarily dangerous gambit. Yes, Chen agreed. But it is better than the alternatives. And we believe we can do it. How? Kelth asked. What could possibly generate enough harmonic interference to disrupt technology that operates beyond all known limits? Morrison smiled slightly. Music. The chamber fell silent. Several delegates appeared to be checking their translation systems, certain they had misheard. I beg your pardon, Kelth said slowly. Music, Morrison repeated. Or more precisely, coordinated harmonic frequencies broadcast from multiple sources. The veil systems rely on precise rhythmic balance. If we introduce competing rhythms, carefully calculated to create interference patterns, their systems will have to adjust. But they cannot adjust properly because their rhythm is already unstable. It is like trying to dance to two different songs at once, Chen added. Eventually you trip. This is madness, someone declared. This is physics, Morrison countered. Wave interference, harmonic resonance, frequency modulation. The mathematics are sound, Chen gestured to the display again. We need every ship in the conquered fleet to act as a broadcast point. Each one will transmit a specific frequency, precisely timed. When the Veil arrive, they will be surrounded by a web of harmonic interference. Their systems will destabilize in a controlled manner. And if you are wrong, asked a delegate. If this accelerates the collapse too quickly, then we all die, Chen said bluntly. But we die anyway if we do nothing or if we attack. This gives us a chance. The debate lasted for hours. Some species refused to participate, choosing to flee to the outer edges of their territories. Others agreed reluctantly, motivated more by desperation than conviction. But slowly, painfully, a consensus formed. They would try the human plan. As the assembly dispersed to prepare their ships, Ambassador Kelth approached Chen privately. His scales had settled into a resigned blue-gray pattern. I hope you understand what you are asking us to risk, he said quietly. I do, Chen replied, but I also understand what we stand to lose if we do nothing. Kelth studied her for a long moment. Your species is either very wise or very foolish. I suppose we will soon discover which. The next cycle was a blur of activity. Morrison and his team worked with scientists from dozens of species, calculating the precise frequencies needed for the harmonic interference. Rodriguez coordinated with Concord engineers to modify ship systems for the broadcasts. Webb drilled the human crew relentlessly, ensuring they understood their role in the coming operation. Chen herself spent time reaching out to individual species, building trust, explaining the plan over and over until even the most skeptical began to understand. She slept in brief intervals, catching moments of rest between crisis and preparation. When the Veil fleet finally appeared at the edge of sensor range, everything was ready. Or as ready as it could be. The Concorde fleet had positioned itself in a spherical formation around the assembly station, not arranged for battle but for broadcast. Each ship held position precisely as calculated, creating a three-dimensional grid of transmission points. On the bridge of the Curiosity, Chen watched the Veil fleet approach. The Darkstar Ascendant led the formation, its dark hull seeming to swallow the light of distant stars. Behind it came dozens of warships, all moving in perfect synchronization. They are hailing us, Webb announced. Put them through. Supreme Commander Vartok appeared on the main screen. His four eyes gleamed with triumph as he surveyed the assembled Concorde fleet. So, he said, you have chosen to surrender without even token resistance. How disappointing. I expected at least some attempt at defiance. We are not surrendering, Commander, Chen said calmly. We are preparing to help you. Vartok's expression shifted to confusion, then to anger. Help me? You presume much, insect. You are in danger, Commander. Your technology is failing. The rhythmic balance you have created is deteriorating. If you continue on your current course, you will trigger a cascade that will destroy not just your fleet, but this entire region of space. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Vartok's features. Then his expression hardened. You lie. You attempt to trick me into backing down with primitive deception. Our systems are perfect. Our power is absolute. Check your readings, Chen urged. Look at the micro fluctuations in your energy patterns. They are growing, Commander. Soon they will be beyond your control. Bartok glanced at something off-screen, presumably a tactical display. His eyes narrowed. Minor variations. Meaningless. You grasp at straws because you know you are defeated. Then prove me wrong, Chen challenged. Continue your approach, but know that we will do everything in our power to save as many lives as possible, including yours. I do not need your salvation, Bartok snarled. I am salvation. I am the future. And you are about to be the past. The transmission cut off. The Veil fleet accelerated, racing toward the Concorde formation. All ships, Chen broadcast on the command frequency. Prepare to initiate harmonic interference on my mark. Remember, precise timing is everything. We get one chance at this. Acknowledgements poured in from hundreds of ships. Species that had fought wars against each other for thousands of years now worked together, united by necessity and by trust in a human plan that most of them still did not fully understand. Veil fleet entering optimal range in 30 seconds, Morrison reported, his voice tight with tension. Chen watched the distance close, counting down silently. Everything they had calculated, everything they had prepared, came down to this moment. If they had miscalculated even slightly, if the timing was off by even a fraction of a second, the result would be catastrophic. 15 seconds, Morrison said. The Veil ships were visible now, not just as sensor readings but as physical objects, massive and terrible and beautiful in their deadly elegance. Chen could imagine Bartok on his bridge, certain of victory, unable to see the trap closing around him. 10 seconds. Chen felt a strange calm settle over her. This was what humanity did. They faced impossible problems with creativity and courage. They danced on the edge of disaster and somehow found solid ground. 5 seconds. The entire conquered fleet held its collective breath. Thousands of ships, millions of beings, all waiting for one word from one human captain. Now, Chen said quietly, and the galaxy began to sing. Every ship in the formation activated their transmitters simultaneously. Harmonic frequencies poured into space, creating waves of energy that were invisible to the eye but devastating to the Veil systems. The carefully calculated interference patterns washed over the approaching fleet like an ocean tide. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Veil ships continued their approach, weapons charging, engines blazing. Then the Dark Star Ascendant shuddered. It is working, Morrison breathed. Their systems are trying to compensate. Chen could see it in the sensor readings. The Veil were increasing power to their engines, pushing harder to maintain their rhythm against the interference. Exactly as predicted, exactly as planned. Bartok is doing what pride demands, Chen said softly. He is trying to prove us wrong by pushing through. The shuddering in the Veil ships increased. Energy readings spiked wildly as their systems fought to maintain balance. But the balance was already lost. The rhythm that had allowed them to dance with reality was falling apart, and the harder they pushed, the faster it disintegrated. Captain, Webb said urgently, the Veil are targeting our position. They think we are attacking them. Hold formation, Chen ordered. Do not return fire. Let the plan work. The Dark Star Ascendant fired massive beams of energy lancing toward the Concorde fleet, but the shots went wide, the targeting systems failing as the ship's entire infrastructure began to collapse. Energy cascade forming in their primary systems, Morrison reported. It is accelerating rapidly. Too rapidly. Chen felt her heart skip. How long? Minutes, maybe less. Then we move to phase 2, Chen said, her voice steady despite the ice in her veins. All ships execute containment pattern Alpha. We need to create a spatial bubble around the Veil fleet before the cascade reaches critical mass. The Concorde ships shifted position, moving with practiced precision despite the danger. They formed a tighter sphere around the Veil, each ship generating a specific type of energy field. When the fields overlapped, they created something unprecedented, a pocket of space-time that was partially isolated from the rest of reality. Containment field forming, Rodriguez reported. It is holding, but barely. When the cascade releases, the field will not last long. It does not need to last long, Chen said. Just long enough? On the main screen, they could see the Veil ships beginning to tear themselves apart from within. The dance had ended and reality was collecting its due. The Dark Star Ascendant was dying, and it was not going quietly. Energy cascaded through its systems in wild, uncontrolled bursts. The dark hull that had seemed so intimidating now buckled and twisted as the forces contained within it fought to escape. Smaller Veil ships around the flagship suffered the same fate, their perfect formations breaking apart as each vessel struggled with its own internal collapse. Inside the containment field created by the conquered fleet, space itself seemed to ripple and distort. Captain Chen watched the sensor readings with intense focus, knowing that every second mattered now. Containment field holding at 63%, Rodriguez called out, her voice strained. But the energy release is increasing. We will not be able to maintain it much longer. How long do we have? Chen asked. 2 minutes, maybe 3. On the communication channels, Chen could hear the chatter from other conquered ships. Some captains were calling for immediate retreat. Others wanted to know if they should prepare for the containment field's failure. Fear threaded through every transmission, and Chen could not blame them. What they were attempting had never been done before. All ships maintain position, Chen broadcast with as much calm as she could project. The containment must hold until the cascade completes. If we break formation now, the energy will scatter across normal space and the devastation will be catastrophic. Captain, Webb said quietly, we are receiving a transmission from the Dark Star Ascendant. It is Supreme Commander Vartok, Chen nodded. Put him through. The image that appeared on screen was barely recognizable. Vartok's command chamber was in chaos, with sparks flying from damaged systems and emergency lights casting everything in a hellish red glow. The commander himself looked diminished. His armor cracked, his 4 eyes wide with something that might have been fear or fury or both. What have you done? Vartok demanded, his voice distorted by static. What have you done to my ships? We saved you from yourselves, Chen replied steadily. Your technology was failing, Commander. It was always going to fail. We simply controlled when and how. You attacked us. You sabotaged perfection with your primitive tricks. We introduced harmonic interference, Chen corrected. Your systems were already unstable. You were dancing on the edge of a cliff and you refused to see it. We did what you could not. We stopped dancing before the fall. Around Vartok, another explosion rocked the bridge. A section of ceiling collapsed, barely missing the commander. He steadied himself, and when he looked back at the screen, some of the rage had drained from his expression, replaced by something closer to despair. We were going to unite the galaxy, he said, his voice softer now. We were going to bring order to the chaos. We had transcended the limitations that bound all other life. You had found a clever workaround, Chen said, not without sympathy. But cleverness is not the same as wisdom. The star's law exists for a reason, Commander, not as a wall to keep species imprisoned, but as a boundary that protects reality itself. Then there is no hope, Vartok said quietly. No way to rise above the limits. No way to become more than we are. That is where you are wrong, Chen told him. There are always ways to grow, to expand, to reach for the stars, just not by breaking the fundamental rules of existence. You have to work within them, truly within them, not by exploiting loopholes that will eventually collapse. Another massive shudder ran through the Veil flagship. Vartok glanced around his dying ship, then back at Chen. Will we survive this? We are trying to make sure you do, Chen said honestly. But I cannot promise anything. What happens next depends on how well our containment holds. Then I hope your containment is better than your dancing, Vartok said, and despite everything, there might have been the ghost of humor in his voice. The transmission cut out as the Dark Star Ascendant entered its final death throes. Containment at 40%, Rodriguez reported. The cascade is reaching critical mass. Morrison looked up from his station, his face pale. Captain, the energy patterns. They are forming a feedback loop. If this continues, the containment will not just fail. It will invert. Meaning? Chen asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Meaning instead of containing the explosion, we will focus it. The energy will punch through to another dimension, possibly creating a permanent rift in space-time. Chen felt her blood run cold. They had come so far, planned so carefully, and now faced the possibility of making things infinitely worse. Can we prevent it? She asked. Morrison's fingers flew across his console. Maybe. If we can introduce a damping frequency, something to absorb the excess energy instead of containing it. But it would require massive power output, more than the Curiosity alone can generate. How many ships would we need? All of them. Every vessel in the Concorde fleet would need to redirect their power to the damping field. And even then, Morrison trailed off. leaving the uncertainty hanging in the air. Chen did not hesitate. Do it. Send the calculations to all ships. Authorization code Chen Alpha 7. Captain, Webb interjected. If we commit all power to the damping field, we will be defenseless. If any Veil ship survives and decides to attack, they won't, Chen said with certainty. Vartok knows we are trying to save them, and even if some of his commanders don't believe that, they are too busy trying to survive to think about revenge. The orders went out across the fleet. For a moment there was silence on the communication channels as captains processed what was being asked of them, to drain their ship's power reserves completely, to leave themselves vulnerable, based on the word of a human captain they barely knew. Then, one by one, acknowledgments came back. Ambassador Kelth was the first. The Zorvan ships stand with humanity. We commit our power to the damping field. The Threen Elder was next. If this is our end, let it be an end we chose. The Threen Collective participates. More voices joined. Species after species pledging their trust and their energy. Even those who had been most skeptical, most resistant to the human plan, now offered their support. Chen felt something tighten in her chest. This was what the Galactic Concord was supposed to be. Not just an alliance of convenience, but a true unity of purpose. Damping field ready to deploy on your mark, Captain Morrison said. Through the viewport, Chen could see the Veil fleet completely engulfed in cascading energy now. The Dark Star Ascendant was barely visible through the maelstrom, its dark hull cracking apart like an egg. The other ships were in similar condition. In moments, the cascade would reach its peak and either explode outward or tear a hole in reality itself. All ships, Chen said, her voice carrying across hundreds of communication channels to thousands of beings. Activate damping field now. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Every ship in the Concord fleet lit up as they channeled their power reserves into a single unified field. The energy manifested as waves of soft blue light that washed over the Veil fleet like a gentle tide. Where the wild cascade touched the damping field, the chaos began to slow, to calm, to dissipate. It was beautiful and terrifying at once. It is working, Morrison said, his voice filled with awe. The feedback loop is breaking down. The energy is being absorbed and dispersed harmlessly. But Chen saw the cost. Ship after ship went dark as their power drained away. The Curiosity itself was running on emergency reserves only. If anything went wrong now, if the damping field failed, none of them would have the power to escape. Hold steady, Chen commanded. Just a little longer. Seconds stretched into eternities. The blue light of the damping field grew brighter and brighter, until it was almost blinding. Inside that cocoon of carefully controlled energy, the Veil fleet's collapse continued. But now it was contained, neutralized, rendered safe. Then suddenly it was over. The cascade spent itself. The energy fully absorbed and dispersed. The damping field faded, revealing what remained of the Veil fleet. The ships were intact, more or less, but completely dead. No power, no weapons, no engines. Just hulls floating in space, filled with crews that would need rescue. Containment held, Rodriguez reported, and Chen could hear the relief in her voice. No breach, no dimensional rift, no cascade. It is over. The bridge of the Curiosity erupted in cheers. Chen allowed herself a small smile but raised her hand for quiet. Begin rescue operations, she ordered. The Veil crews will need life support and medical attention. And somebody get Supreme Commander Vartok on communication. I want to make sure he is still alive. It took several hours to coordinate the rescue of the Veil. Many Concord species were reluctant to help those who had so recently threatened them. But Chen insisted. The Veil crews were brought aboard Concord vessels, where they were treated as rescued survivors rather than prisoners of war. When Chen finally spoke with Vartok again, he was aboard a Zorvan medical ship, recovering from injuries sustained when his command chamber had collapsed around him. He looked diminished without his armor and his flagship, but his eyes were clearer than Chen had seen them before. You saved us, he said simply. We saved everyone, Chen corrected. Including ourselves. My people will need time to adjust to this new reality, Vartok continued, to accept that our great achievement was a failure. Not a failure, Chen said gently. A lesson. You proved that it is possible to work with the star's law in new ways. You just pushed too far, too fast. There is knowledge in what you discovered, Commander. Knowledge that, properly understood and carefully applied, could benefit the entire galaxy. Vartok considered this. You would share our technology, even after we threatened you? We would study it together, Chen replied. Learn from both its successes and its failures. That is what the Galactic Concord is supposed to be about. Not conquest or domination, but cooperation and mutual growth. You are either very wise or very naive, Captain Chen. Chen smiled. Maybe both. That seems to be a human specialty. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy slowly returned to normal. The Vale Imperium, humbled but not destroyed, agreed to join the Concord as full partners rather than would-be conquerors. Their technology was studied by scientists from dozens of species, with humans playing a central role in understanding both what had worked and what had failed. The star's law remained as unbreakable as ever. But now the galaxy understood it differently, not as a wall that could never be crossed, but as a dance that required partners who knew the steps. The Vale had learned that brute force and clever tricks were not enough. True advancement required wisdom, cooperation, and respect for the fundamental nature of reality. Chen stood in the observation deck of the Curiosity, looking out at the stars as her ship prepared to return to human space. Dr. Morrison joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee, a human tradition he had come to appreciate during their mission. The Concord Council has officially recognized humanity's contribution, he said, handing her a cup. They are offering us a permanent seat on the Strategic Advisory Board. That was fast, Chen said. We have only been part of the Concord for 73 years. Apparently saving the galaxy from reality collapse earns you some respect, Morrison said with a slight smile. Who knew? Chen laughed softly. What do you think? Should we accept? Absolutely. Someone needs to keep asking the questions everyone else stopped asking millions of years ago. Someone needs to keep looking at walls and seeing doors. Humanity's role in the galaxy, Chen mused. The species that refuses to accept impossible. Could be worse jobs, Morrison pointed out. Chen raised her coffee cup in a small toast. To Dancing with the Stars, then. May we always know when to follow the rhythm and when to change the music. Morrison touched his cup to hers. To Dancing with the Stars. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the endless expanse of space. Somewhere out there, other species were probably encountering other impossible problems, running into other walls that seemed unbreakable, and somewhere out there, humanity would be ready to show them that every wall was just a door waiting for someone clever enough to find the handle. The stars continued their eternal dance, and humanity had earned its place in the choreography. Not by breaking the rules, but by understanding them well enough to dance like no one had ever danced before, the galaxy would never be quite the same again. And that, Captain Sarah Chen thought as she sipped her coffee, was exactly how it should be.